Now take it
All
away,
right.
Jackie.
Thanks, Josh. So I do want to say thank you to everyone for your time today. I know a few folks on this call have heard from me before, and so really happy to be back with this group. And thank you, Josh, and also Fred, even though he's not here today, for having us. We are here today with the Accelerator project and are just very excited because this is a project that ran over the last year and just wrapped up in early July. And so there may be a few folks on the call who participated with us. And if you did, we thank you because we had a ton of fun and also got some really great work done. The overall goal of the project was to incorporate equity across emerging technology design and development. And when we say equity, we're speaking to how equity is defined across the recent executive orders released for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DEIA, as well as several of the other executive orders that have been released, which speak to equity, whether it's related to climate change, whether it's related to national security, and so on and so forth. And so we would like to give a special thank you also to the project's government sponsors, who I think we have Rob on the call today. So thank you, Rob Werman with the General Services Administration, and then also Cindy Good with the Department of Treasury. And so with the Accelerator, we focused on integrating equity through a lot of different forums. And this includes projects, speaker sessions, research, and then in collaboration with the emerging technology COIs working groups, which is why we're here today. And the idea behind us sharing these projects with you all today is that our hope is you can take these projects and take what we've put together, what we've learned, the research that's been conducted, and integrate it across what you're doing for blockchain. So I heard there's going to be a great GBA initiative. This could be what's shared here today could be integrated across the GBA projects for any projects or initiatives that are being worked across ACT-IAC. Our hope is that anyone and everyone on the call today can take this information and use it for any initiative or project that they're going forward with, especially as it relates to blockchain. And so today we are focusing on two of the projects led by the Accelerator. There were several more, but we're going to focus on those two. And we'll also send out all the information for the Accelerator following the meeting. So if anyone is interested in learning more, we will share that information. And then also I'll share my contact information so that if anyone has any questions, I can provide you with that information as well. So the two projects are led by Amora Upton, a nurse informaticist and informatics manager with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Arlinda Halliburton, an emerging technology liaison with the General Services Administration, as well as Sabina Sokol, the Chief Resource Officer and U.S. Ambassador for Girls in Quantum, as well as the Research and Prototype Lead for the Accelerator. And so we'll be covering two of our projects. The first includes the Emerging Technology Literacy Project, or as we like to call it, ETL, because we love acronyms. And so for ETL, Amora was the government champion, and then Sabina was the project manager. And so you're going to hear that word project manager throughout a lot of our projects. We would bring in project managers at very specific time periods to help facilitate our research and our initiatives. And so with the ETL, we also have our cybersecurity and supply chain risk management, or CSCRM project, and that was led by Arlinda Halliburton. And Ketrin McCall with CGI served as the project manager. She can't be with us today, but we will speak to the great work that she did, and we're very appreciative of it. And so the greater idea with the Accelerator is that we can share this all with you today, as mentioned, and that you can go forward with what we'll cover. And so we want this to be something that is beneficial specifically to the blockchain working group. So we'll go through the presentations. Amora and Sabina will present, and then Arlinda will present. And once the presentations are completed, we're going to open up for Q&A. So as the presentations are conducted, feel free to put your comments or questions in the chat. We'll get to them. And if you would like to ask a question at the end of the presentation verbally, raise your hand and we'll make sure that your question is covered. And so what we're doing in celebration of completing the Accelerator is we're having a day with the Emerging Technology COIs working groups that we're calling a pause for equity. And so effectively what an equity pause is it's taking the time to pause the design and planning process to share knowledge across an organization and consider how what is being built or what's being led is incorporating equity. And so this is a time to remind ourselves of our shared goals and practices, and then also determine what we can do better in support of equity and inclusion. And so that's really what today is. It's just a chance to learn about some different subject matter areas where we can kind of think through, hey, what are we building with blockchain that we maybe could consider different elements of equity that need to be built into the design process or the development process or the execution process, to make sure that we're really building these equitable and inclusive communities. And so with that, I will now hand the mic to Amora Upton to share with the Blockchain Working Group community the Emerging Technology Literacy Project.
Good morning. As Jackie stated, the Emerging Technology Literacy Project spanned several months to a year in a large group. The project's problem focused on incorporating equity across literacy and various approaches. We define the term equity as a consistent and systematic, fair, just, and impartial treatment for all individuals, and including individuals who belong to underserved communities that have been denied such treatment, such as Black, Latino, and Indigenous and Native American persons, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders, and other persons of color, members of religious minorities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ persons, and persons with disabilities, and persons that live in rural areas, and persons otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. That is consistent with the definition in alignment with Executive Order 13985 and 14035, as you can see on the slide. We wanted to make sure that both this literacy, we wanted to make sure it aligned everything together so that everybody could achieve these goals. So for addressing the problem statement, we worked with a volunteer team across the government and with everyone, well, within ACT-IAC, the non-governmental and industry organizations. Kicking off the project, we made it a goal to develop an approach that allowed for prototyping across the different technologies and sectors. Our analysis informed by digital literacy frameworks, as well as key performance indicators outlined in federal agency and equity action plans. You can see here on the slide, we started with the inputs of various people from the agencies and from everyone gave their input. We started with our use case posters. We had the use case summit, and we showed that at the beginning. Let's see, it showed it. Can we go to the next slide? It shows the use case summit on the next slide. Here we go. All right, this is the project overview. In August 2022, we all worked together to basically figure out what we wanted to do with the problem statement. As we gathered the information, we presented the poster at the Use Case Summit for feedback, which was available online on the ACT-IAC website and in the paper to be published. In total, the volunteer community and we identified 8 potential piloting areas and opportunities. We thought we would work backwards from there. We looked at 8 different areas we thought as a potential that we could use, and we decided to refine the approach. So come February 2023, we came up with various literary frameworks as a comparative analysis. We started researching across the world to see what kind of literary frameworks they were using all over the world. First, we conducted we reviewed 15 different comparative analysis, and we came up with the best approach based on what would be simple. Because some of them had extremely long frameworks that had it was basically 20 pages long for some of the frameworks, and we thought that was just too complicated. Based on the executive orders and based on the executive orders of equity, we decided we wanted to bring that back into these concepts. So with this research, that's where the CARES framework came about. So with this research, we developed a greater understanding of the industry, the standard frameworks that are available today, and, be- and began developing the white paper to outline what equity can be incorporated throughout a literacy approach. In order to organize the research, the paper, and gathering feedback from the SMEs, the volunteer community, we brought on Sabina Sokol to serve as the project manager. Sabina will share some insights on how she organized the project and how she continued to collect feedback from the ACT-IAC volunteer community as the paper was developed. Sabina?
Thanks, Amora and Sabina. Just one moment. We have someone who's off mute. I can hear them talking in the background. If that person could mute, that would be great. Go ahead, Sabina.
Thank you, Jackie and Amora. So after the framework analysis and project research were completed, and that was synthesized into a couple documents for easy digestion and reference, we established a rough outline as well as our core team of writers for the paper. That was me, Jackie, Amora, and Sam Walters. Our goal from the beginning was to finish this product in full by the end of June so we can publish it in July, which was a relatively small window of time, only about 9 to 10 weeks, I think. So establishing and clearly communicating a timeline for each writing, reviewing, editing step from the start was highly important. And we did need to make a couple small adjustments to that original plan, but overall, we ensured that we stayed on track by keeping everyone apprised of where we were in the process and providing ample heads up for next steps so that there were no surprises. So we were able to synthesize all the information that was gathered into a first draft in 1 week, which was amazing. And while we were writing, we're also actively forming our volunteer community and group of subject matter expert reviewers. So when the time came to collect input the next week, we had a list of people ready. We sought out a diverse set of reviewers to ensure that we were incorporating tech literacy considerations and perspectives from a wide range of organizations, including government and industry. And during the development of this white paper, our stakeholders changed a few times as well. And so the people we involved in the next recovery session, next review sessions, was adapted to meet the new need. So we cycled through a couple rounds of these reviews and revision periods before one final push in the last week of June, and that was it. The paper has just been published as we anticipated on time. And so our next step, which I will also take part in driving, is to run a pilot program. And as Maura mentioned before, ideas for prototypes were developed previously. And so where we're going to work with a focus group to observe how the CARES framework, which will be fleshed out in a couple slides, how that framework can be used with existing playbooks. I'm aware that the AI and blockchain working groups have already developed such materials, so this is the perfect opportunity to implement it, see it in action. So if you or someone you know within the emerging technology community of interest is interested in participating in such an initiative, I encourage you to submit a very short Google form that I will drop in the chat shortly. So we're still developing our plan on how to facilitate this pilot program, but we will reach out to everyone who submits the survey when it's fleshed out. Back to you, Jackie.
Thanks, Sabina. And I will just say this would not have been possible, and Amora would also I think we both know it would not have been possible without Sabina. So thank you, Sabina, for just the excellent project management. You can see there, we had 3 different groups of stakeholders that we ran the paper by: our core team, volunteer community, and then SMEs. And our SMEs are very busy, but Sabina got it done. So thank you, Sabina. And Amora, I will hand the mic back to you.
Well, thank you, Jackie and Sabina. As you can see with the ETL, the white paper executive summary, and each of the KPIs, the benefits of the greater ETL advancing through the emergency technology and design and development. The benefits of all of these things are to integrate, support, and increase and promote everything. The literacy initiatives play a crucial and critical role for addressing inequities when it comes to emerging technologies, especially in regard to workforce development, into regulations, and open innovations, which we will cover in some detail in the paper. By incorporating equity across emerging technology literacy approaches, these are some of the benefits. Integration of equity considerations can help drive co-creation, support teaming efforts across diverse sectors, increase accessibility, and promote transparency across the development of emerging technologies, which is on top of everyone's minds today. To increase the benefits are realized when we develop the CARES framework. So the equity considerations for this is for the CARES framework, which if you've seen the paper, I'm not sure if you did or not, but the CARES framework, I'm trying to look at make sure we're on the same slide as the, are we on slide 4? Okay. The equity considerations for the CARES framework, there are several executive orders, different pieces of legislation, and the ACT-IAC materials that informed our analysis. These include the executive orders 13895, 14035, and 14028, and the recent executive order on the prohibition on use of the United States government of commercial spyware that poses risk to national security. Through our analysis, one item of note that we found is that only a single use case provided by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, of all the artificial intelligence use cases published by the federal agencies in alignment with EO 13960 focuses on privacy. So when it comes to incorporating equity across emerging technology design and development, we need to consider how these technologies can also be leveraged to protect people's privacy. We also found the critical role of open innovation when it comes to greater ETL, and would like to highlight that ACT-IAC's Emerging Technology Challenge, which focuses on establishing knowledge base and interoperable structure which federal agencies can use for secure and robust public and private collaboration across emerging technologies ecosystem. It's through these structures and things like these where ETL approaches become actionable. Next slide. This brings us to the CARES framework. As you can see, CARES stands for collaboration, access, impact, resilience, and security. So the framework has these 5 dimensions. The first, collaboration, allows organizations to assess existing data, existing literacy frameworks. The federal-wide literacy resources, congressionally mandated resources, and existing public sector focused coalitions or councils to support teaming, co-creation, and open innovation. The second develops understanding of the potential barriers to assess to help organizations address potential delays in knowledge and attainment and development. The third supports organizations with exploring how strategic planning engagement with subject matter experts and practitioners, DEIA considerations, social values, demographics, health impacts, social inequities, algorithmic biases, and quality of life considerations influence and learning and development of ETL participants to inform the most flexible, simple approaches for developing literacy tools and resources. The fourth assesses the impacts of economic, social, and political changes to address organizational and cultural inefficiencies and efficiencies, risks, and issues. The fifth and final dimension examines how to integrate data privacy, secure data sharing, secure infrastructures, secure development, secure communications, cybersecurity, and compliance and regulatory considerations into a full life cycle of ETL approaches. Next slide. So, this brings us to pilot opportunities. While the paper is complete, the framework itself the framework itself is also, we are hoping to refine the pilots. This is supported by different emerging technologies, including blockchain, artificial intelligence, and quantum. We would like to encourage everyone on this call and in other calls, we'd like to encourage you all to consider using this framework for different initiatives, as Jackie said at the beginning, and projects across your working groups to share the results of this framework to determine how it could be applied in real life settings. Back to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Amora. And so, as Sabina mentioned, there is a form in the chat. Sabina will serve as a lead there. So feel free to submit your name if you would like to apply this framework and one or more of your initiatives, and provide feedback to ACT-IAC on what's feasible with it, or how it can be changed, how it can be evolved. So we're very much looking forward to that feedback. And thank you so much, Amora, for the great overview, and Sabina as well. And so now I will pass the mic to our Linda Halliburton with the General Services Administration to talk through the CSCRM project. And Arlinda, if you're talking, you might be on mute.
I clicked the button, but it did. Okay, so can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right. So I was just saying thank you to everyone who's here today to hear about the great work and the great fun that we had as members of the Accelerator and the project for our C-Scrums project. I would like to start by saying, for me, this project was driven by sort of an immediate practicality because I work on the industry side of things. I work with GSA. I am industry outreach and communications and education leader and liaison. And so what I'm constantly looking to do is bring value in understanding to our industry community. And I don't remember exactly right now how many thousands of vendors there are on our particular schedule, but there are a lot. So what drove this was I started to see more and more evidence that small businesses might might encounter some issues with meeting the federally sanctioned mandates that were becoming more and more stringent. Initially are and still currently, they're only being required pretty much by DoD or any other agency that uses high level data, like NASA, or well, it could be anywhere, the Health and Human Services, someplace where the vendor or the contractor will have access to high level data. So the goal was to make sure that small businesses and what we call non-traditional businesses would have access, that they would not be pushed out of the marketplace because they could not meet these federal mandates. And we know that they're just growing and becoming more stringent. One of the things that we're all looking to is the upcoming CMMC2, which will impact not only contracting with DoD, but even civilian agencies. So if businesses, and particularly, as I said, we focused on small businesses because our focus, as with the everything in the accelerator, was around equity and providing equity. And we know equity is not just limited to individuals. It also includes organizations, and so basically that was our problem statement. Um, so our inputs. We developed a pre-survey, and I just like to back up and say that we had part of the reason this was so great was we had a really great team. The team was what is a diverse team that incorporates government, academia, and industry. And one particular one area in which we were able to get some really great feedback and information was through our alliance with PTAC community. I believe one of the team members is on the call, Mr. Gregory James. The PTACs now have changed their name to Apex Accelerators because they are looking at doing more creative ways and more creative things around engagement to support the business community. And the PTAC that Mr. James represents out of Arlington, Texas, University of Texas, had already developed a self-assessment tool. Why is that important? Because what we discovered was that getting a third-party assessment can be really, really, really expensive, and if and can push small businesses out of having that accessibility to allow for third-party assessments. So providing a really comprehensive and a tool that small businesses can use, where they can get an idea where they stand relevant to their own self-assessment. So again, as we know that the government now is really focusing on, and also let me just back up and say that it's really important. Everybody's paying attention now, even though, and in some cases, when I talk to cyber specialists, they said the federal government feels a little bit under the gun. They feel like they're a little bit behind where they should be with a lot of this, and it's something that, as we say, is constantly becoming more rigorous, constantly evolving. And so our project ties into the President's Management Agenda, Priority 3, Strategy 1, and Executive Order 14017, which has to do with cyber. There's so many resources and so much attention now going to cyber. So it really is. It's really great to be sort of engaging in that, in the front of that, and helping to try to move the needle forward with what small businesses understand and helping them gain the access to the resources that they need. So our inputs. First, we developed our pre-survey to validate the questions for the small businesses and better address their needs. Our pre-survey was done, interestingly, because most of the people who are on the project team are from within GSA and are all members of, are all subject matter experts. So they would include zero trust specialists, someone who in a policy that's dealing with cyber policy, a member of the team that was originally up from ITC but moved to TTS. And then, of course, as I said, a member of the PTAC community, which has an affiliation, by the way, of over 90 Apex accelerators. So getting this out and in front of industry is our goal. So, and to try to, basically what our problem statement was to identify pathways for small businesses to address efficiency and effectively how the government can on-ramp small businesses and support its mission objectives. Next slide. Okay, so our project overview. As you can see, we started about the same, like a year ago, working on this project. In August of 2020, we had to define our problem statement. And basically the team, after we did brainstorming, a lot of brainstorming, decided that the best way to probably address this would to be in a survey, rather than just, a survey that our industry partners could respond to, and so that we could get feedback from them and see what it was they felt that they didn't know and what they needed to know. And that involved sort of metering out what questions would be most effective and the ones that related specifically to the NIST requirements, the things that we saw coming up with that the challenges that kept going back and forth with the cyber maturity models, and if those cyber maturity models would be implemented, and it looks like for CMMC2 pretty soon. At one point, we were backing away from that because CMMC2 has been sort of not really well defined and has gone back and forth, but it looks like now solidly moving forward. And so that's why it's really, really important for our industry partners. Let's see. So after developing our pre-survey for small businesses, we developed the final survey and send it to ACT-IAC, so that the ACT-IAC communities of interest, so that they could have some input, and so that we could get input from them as to if they felt it met the objectives that were being stated within what they saw relevant to compliance regulations and mandated requirements, based on NIST. Let's see, NIST actual requirements 800, 171, 853, and a couple of more which are evading me right now. But so back to our overview. So in August, we started with the problem statement. It was reviewed and approved by the Emerging Technology COI leadership team. That was in August. And in January, we completed the pre-survey, which was really a big deal for us because we had gone back. We were so excited. And then in March, we actually did our final survey with completion. And also just remind everyone, when we say final survey, we're still talking, this is a pilot. And we're going to be hopefully having more over time iterations, because as you all know, the C-SCRM arena is a rapidly moving and rapidly changing ballpark. So then in our final survey was conducted with all of ACT-IAC. And then in April, we did our final survey and we had our results reviewed. And so April, and then in June, we actually began the summary of the report development. On both surveys were reviewed by both surveys were reviewed by the volunteer community, by members of ACT-IAC, and by principally and industry. Okay, so just so you all know, full disclosure, I'm one of those people who does speaking notes and then never looks at them. So if you see me looking down, I'm going, oh yeah, I got a speaking note for that, but I'm totally not staying on the speaking notes. Okay,
So I will mention, Arlinda, we have about 5 minutes left in the meeting. So if you want to go through just really quick the survey results, and then we can talk through the observations and then maybe leave a few minutes for any questions.
Okay. Okay, so then that will take us to our key takeaways. And our key takeaways were, and you can see here in this slide, that they wanted clear and accessible educational materials because they felt that there was not, the resources were not there that were giving them the feedback that they, or were not giving them the education opportunities that they needed. But actually, just before, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Before I go to this side, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the completion of the final survey was we onboarded a project manager, and her name was Ketrin McCall. I had hoped that she would be able to present her great work today, but she was not unable to, and I don't know, because of time. I had hoped, I was recruiting someone, hopefully Jackie would at least just sort of quickly go over what Ketrin did, because her good work deserves some mention. So Jackie,
Yes,
would you
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So Ketrin McCall, for folks who have not met Ketrin, she is awesome. She is an ACT-IAC Associates graduate. There have been associates who have presented with the blockchain working group in the past, Sam Walters, who helped with the ETL project. And so once the surveys were completed, she really led the project management for consolidating the data, talking through different considerations that the SMEs and government representatives and non-governmental representatives had shared, and bringing that all together in the summary report that you see here. So I know Ketrin did an absolutely fantastic job. If anybody is looking for a project manager or somebody with an interest in helping with initiatives like this, Ketrin is wonderful. And with that, I know we have about 3 minutes left. So Josh, if it works for you, we can maybe open this up for any questions that the group has. And then if we can't get to questions today, we'll put our contact information in the chat so that you can reach out. But I'm also going to put the summary, the links to everything in the chat so that everyone can access the documentation. So I will be quiet now. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question for Josh. Josh, I'm looking for the link to the AI meeting. I see the information for the AI meeting, but I'm not seeing the link to